That's okay. So a group of us went to DC a while back and asked the State Department to allow for additional funding for uh, surveys. Um, I think we're successful in that. It's a little bit unclear exactly how that came down. There was additional money that came from the U.S. government pretty recently, last fiscal year or last year anyway, in 2025, I think. And I just heard today, I can't remember who told me, it was at lunch that, or maybe it was here, no, it was you. It was you, said that it was, had conditions associated with it. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just going to come sit next to you. Yes, thank you. The U.S. contribution had a, I guess, stipulation attached to it that the funds be used for the FIS in 3B and then areas 4A and 4B.
Okay. And can you tell me where those stipulations came from?
Yeah. When the money was provided.
Like by
This was the
Congress?
State Department
The
money?
State Department money?
The 300 and
513.
530. Yeah, I can't remember the exact amount. Sorry.
That's different.
I mean, background, those are identified as priority areas for sampling. Without the funds at that point, there was potentially no sampling in 3B and 4A and 4B without going into a very large deficit. So I don't know the discussions behind the scenes, but those match with areas that would otherwise be would have been difficult finding funding for 2026.
Okay, thank you. And another question, if I may.
Go ahead, Heather.
So I just want to try to understand the two amounts of additional funding that are coming from Canada. And one of them we just heard quite recently about, the 1 million. And then there was another amount mentioned, 700,000 or so. No? I'm a little bit unclear on how that all came and when. Can you clear that up?
We haven't received it, but first to clarify, it's 1 million Canadian dollars, which converts to about 720,000 US. So I think the two numbers are the same thing.
Okay.
They're not? No? Oh, I apologize.
I'm just going to say
Yeah.
So the contribution from Canada that was mentioned at the FAC meeting was $1 million Canadian, which is about 720 US or so. And that was a contribution for specifically the FIS versus correct. However, we haven't received said funds. The only thing we've had is what you guys probably heard yourself, is that yes, we're going to provide this money. That's all we have as of now. And then, as we're all aware, yesterday there was a statement made that they will be providing $1 million US, and it is my understanding that those funds are for the general the general IPHC reserve. Those are not FIS specific funds. Those are separate.
Okay. So the first amount was
Specified for
specified
the
for the FIS or the FIS reserve?
Correct.
You just said reserve?
Yes.
The reserve.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That was kind of what I wanted to understand. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Peggy?
Thanks. Yeah, I just talked with Dave about this. So he said that exactly that, but then the 100 million, sorry, 1 million US. I already have spent that much in terms of research that I would love to see. Is maybe not going to be determined at this meeting where it will go. It will, and Dave had no idea if there would be strings attached. That was my question. What kind of strings are attached? And so that's, I think, all we know right at the moment.
So the question you put today was, could those funds be directed at the FIS? And he didn't know. Thank you. Anybody else? Peggy?
When Kayla was telling us about some of how things worked with the FIS, it occurred to me that, I mean, she sort of made a plea to get the word out that boats were needed. And I really appreciate that. I think all of us did here. And it just was, I was thinking, has there ever been an effort, and do you think this would help to find out from, the long-term people who have done and everyone has different reasons, but to see if there are specific things that keep coming up that could be changed? May not be something that we could afford, for instance, but just to get a general sense if there is any of the shared issues, shared problems that some of these skippers might have.
Yes, there's certainly quite a bit of effort made in that regard. There's discussions had leading up to the FIS as well as after the FIS with each captain, and there generally tends to be some things that they would like to see changed that we just either scientifically or logistically or financially just cannot do. Other things we've made adjustments to as needed. I'll use like number of skates per set as an example. In areas where there is less financial impact, whether we use 8 skates or 4 skates or 6, we do allow that flexibility in modifying that to the vessel's need or to our need, or depending on the discussion. Unfortunately, most areas don't necessarily have that flexibility, I will say. I will, let me see, the last time we did 4 CDE was 2023 or 24. And that year we had planned to do 4 skates in that area, and the folks from St. Paul the St. Peter ended up doing that work, and they voluntarily did 6 skates for that exact reason, because they wanted more data, they wanted more information. Yeah, other things that come up are discussed a lot. Like I said, a lot of them are just really hard to adjust based on our tender specifications and our scientific needs. I will say that the majority of the boats that come back year after year that have been doing the survey for decades, they fit this survey into their plans. They know that they're going to be doing at least a couple months of work in the summer, and that's their plan. Vice versa, the vessels that I reach out to on a regular basis, it's either size restrictions, they have an auto baiter that they don't want to take off, despite us offering to pay them for a couple extra days of work to take the auto baiter off that we can't have on board. A lot of them talk about black cod quota and it just being too much. They can't take on more work. And then there's also the mention, particularly in area 4A and 4B, that the work is so laborious. They got to travel out there. They're not catching a lot of fish. They're practically losing money. The folks that have done it over the past few years, they say, yeah, you gave me a large charter payment, but once I paid for all of my lost gear and all of the food and all of the this and that and the fuel and this and that, the crew share that I had to give my guys was nothing versus what I can do when I'm fishing commercially. It's just not financially reasonable for them to participate in the survey. And that's the big problem. We don't have this unlimited fund that we can provide these guys to do these areas. So anyways, that's my spiel.
Thanks, Kayla. I guess I have a comment. Oh, go ahead, Susan.
I have a question about the bait expense. So how much did it go up from previous year?
Yeah, so in 2025, we paid an average of $1.60 a pound versus this year, we have an average of about $2.40, $2.50. We have 3 different suppliers right now that we purchase in-season bait from, so it varies.
Sorry, for 2025, 250 or for,
No,
for
for
the coming
20,
season?
excuse me, for
26?
2025.
You're
we
forecasting
we
that.
had an average of $1.60 a pound. The bait that we purchased for the 2025 FIS was on average $1.60. For 2026, the the preseason chum that we have currently purchased in anticipation for the 2026 FIS averages about $2.40, $2.50 a pound.
And is that FOB, Alaska, or Canadian ports, or is that,
That is across the board.
so it's in the
We have
places,
bait
where
secured.
that's the price where you're gonna have to pick it up at, right?
Yes, so we
It's
have
all in
bait, yeah,
cost.
and this includes storage of the bait as well, yes, yeah. This does not include the shipping to all ports, though. Yeah, there is gonna be an additional shipping fee. For example, we have a US bait that was secured and is stored in Washington. We have bait that was secured in Canada and it's currently stored in Prince Rupert. However, we will have to disperse that, and right now, that shipping fee is not included in that average price.
Cost of doing business keeps going up. Chums are very short supply right now. I think most people know. So I'm not surprised. One question I had, Kayla, is did the am I correct in I think that I heard that the Captain's Choice Station, that program went away? That's
Yeah.
not an option anymore.
No, we just did that in 2024.
Okay. Good to know. I think that everybody around this room has probably heard, if you sat in the conference board at all and listened to presentations from staff, that this program is key to the success of estimating what this population is. And it has been key for a long time. And the fact that for whatever reasons, mostly financial, that we cannot complete this in the manner that needs to be done. There's some out of the box thinking needs to happen. This needs to be fixed. And I think that we as Processors Advisory Board need to come forward with a motion directing that however that happens, that IPHC figures it out. I'm kind of, I like to think out of the box sometimes, and I'm probably sitting in a bad place to bring this forward, but I threw this out at the conference board, that maybe we could gain a lot of efficiency. Since IFQs came into effect, the standard operation anymore for most boats is leasing quota, right? Boats are, consolidation boats are fishing many other people's quota. There are some guys that probably have some room. Could we not tie in a combination of, and this program has worked in Chatham Blackcod for a while with the state of Alaska, of doing sampling at the same time prosecuting quota? And could not we figure out a way to make that happen with the commercial fleet where they're out harvesting their own halibut and catching survey fish as well? You would have to have survey staff on the boat, which is going to narrow your vessels, options down greatly. That's a big ask. But it seems to me that in the first, the response I got from the conference board was not real favorable right off the get-go. But I think that if there's a will, there's a way that we can figure it out. And, cutting down on travel costs, running clear across the Gulf, if you're using boats that are already active in the fishery out there, that maybe there's an opportunity to really save on some money and increase efficiency. There's a lot of humps, a lot of hurdles to jump through to even think about making that work, but I think it could be possible. So just an idea. Heather?
Do you want to know what Ray thinks of that? I would like to know. I mean, I've heard this talked about, and I think, number one, you're exactly right about the importance of the surveys being done according to science rather than revenue. And I'd like to know what Ray thinks about your idea and whether there are any other ideas that we could support. Because I was also going to ask Ray to speak a little bit to this whole idea of bias as a result of inadequate surveys in various areas. I would still like him to talk about that, but I'd also like to know, Ray, if you have any other thoughts, or anyone, if they have other thoughts about what we could do other than beg for money from the State Department and Congress, which, you know,
Which is a lot of fun.
it is a lot of fun, but you know, it's no way to run a business. It's crazy. So we need change, and we need to make an effort as an industry to help make that change. And yeah, both here and elsewhere perhaps, but anyway, that's my spiel.
So I'm not sure I'll comment on that specific idea, but a couple of years ago, we commission tasked us with finding ways of making the FIS more efficient, more cost effective, and we came up with a list that was as long as the alphabet, and Kayla can correct me, but I think most of those were either not feasible, either in the short term or not feasible at all. And so, but it's something that we keep considering. We implemented the vessel captain stations in 2024, made us some money, didn't give us data that were usable, unfortunately. We've looked at using pink salmon instead of chum salmon, and that is now a thing we can do. We tested it a couple of times. Unfortunately, pink salmon caught us a lot fewer fish, particularly in some areas like out west. It was only 30% of the catch, or more or less, of chum salmon. So, and the other is having snap vessels being available for bids, and we're still not getting a lot of snap vessels showing interest. So we are considering a multitude of ideas constantly, and we will revisit things as they and discuss them as they maybe seem more feasible again. But that your idea, I think, was one of the ones on our list. But but it wasn't something that was going to work at the time. And was there another part?
Bias, the whole bias thing.
The whole bias thing.
Can you explain it in layman's terms?
I'll try. Bias is when you're systematically under or overestimating the thing you're interested in. And so if we don't go to an area, but there's been some change, that change is unobserved since the last time we went there. That change is unobserved, and we will not, and so we will not estimate that change. We'll have no information on that change. And so if the far west of Aleutians has gone up or gone down dramatically in the last few years, we have no idea. And so the estimate will be biased. And we've seen pretty consistently large changes over short periods of time across the stock. And I have a graphic, I think from last year maybe, which showed that over a 3-year period, a 15% or more change in a biological region was more often, what did I just say, 15% or more change over a 3-year period happen more often than not in each biological region. We either got consistent declines or we got some jumps, and so if we're not sampling, we're not seeing those changes. The model can't see what you haven't measured. The space-time model for the survey data can't see what you haven't measured, and in the absence of data, it's going to use the best thing it has, and that's the most recent data or the data that's closest to it, and that generally brings in, that generally results in an estimate that's similar to the last time we sampled it. So a lack of sampling is like in a dynamic stock like this is likely to lead to bias. And the goal of the base block design is to sample with sufficient frequency that those biases remain small. So if we sample every 2 years or every 3 years each station, or at least in the core of the stock, then that at least should constrain the biases. We're not going to see such dramatic changes as we would see over 3 or 4 or 5 or more years. Ideally, we'd be sampling every station or throughout the stock every year. It's more or less what we used to do. when stocks were higher. But we don't have the resources to do that, so we try to design a survey that minimizes the potential for bias.
Peggy?
How much would that cost to do exactly what you described?
Yeah.
Higher than just good.
Yeah, I would guess it's going to be in the 4 million or so range.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It may be worth thinking about, and then we'd know how much to ask for. Saying.
I will just say, money aside, keep in mind, we currently have issues get recruiting vessels. So imagine the trouble we would have recruiting vessels for the entire survey. I can't imagine there being, yeah. Yeah.
That's on my-
Okay, thanks.
Susan?
Norm, do you want us to make a recommendation that they look into using vessels like they do in Chatham? Do we want, as a group, to make a recommendation?
Well, I guess I would look to the group to see, we have some guys that participate in charter. Is there any validity in it before we do that? Go ahead, Heather.
So the St. Peter is from the group that I work for, that did that work last time in 4CDE. And I would like to talk to them before I would want to commit to making that kind of recommendation, and would think about making a more general recommendation that includes that and maybe other things as well.
Maybe narrow it down to 5?
Yeah,
Research these 4 or 5 and let us know.
sure. Yeah. Maybe after we talk to our guys and other people who have folks that participate in the survey, maybe talk to them a little bit. I know they're taking this up to a certain extent to the conference board as well. So it'll be interesting during our delegation meeting at 5, the US delegation anyway, to see what they have come up with, if anything, over there. So be good to think a bit before we start making a motion. That would be my recommendation.
And then I have one more comment on the bait, and maybe you can help address this. When I was asked about finding bait or looking for bait, and that the recommendation was for semi-bright, number 2 semi-bright or better, is there a big difference between using semi-bright and dark chum with good meat color, where we could save, where there's some money saved? Or, I mean,
Bruce, you want to speak to that? Or not? I mean, I feel like I can, but you're actually fishing.
matter. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between those two. I mean, it goes to oil content, right? I mean, if you start messing around with different bait, you're kind of moving the parameters of the fishery. I wasn't a big advocate of the pink thing, but we have gone through some changes where we just change stuff and then try and figure out what the difference. I mean, the biggest one probably is circle hooks, right? For a million years we used J hooks, and then one day we went to circle hooks. Well, that certainly, probably nothing skewed the data more than that. It doubled everybody's catch in the same spot. So is fishing exactly the same with dark GMC? Probably pretty close. I don't know, a lot closer than pinks. It's hard to say.
Is that less expensive? Yeah.
Market price for darks is significantly lower than for semi-brights or brights. Market really doesn't want them. And I wonder, have you had any conversation with hatcheries about that? Because the cost recovery program, they deal with millions of pounds of dark fish, because that cost recovery is happening, at the spawning site. So there's a lot of it potentially available, that would be a good place to go to try and access some. You know, because of the timing, you'd want to have that a year ahead of time,
Yeah.
because those fish aren't available until the fall. But there's a lot of it out there. Bill?
When you use the chum bait, are you salting the bait? You can't salt it, that would change the catching. It stays on the hook better if it's firmer.
Yeah, we're only fishing, what are we fishing, 5 days or something, and they're frozen when we put them in. They're pretty good. They come out of there hard as rock most of the days. So don't really need to salt them. We're not fishing. You're talking about the old 15-day trips, Bill.
Yeah, we don't allow the bait to be salted on the survey.
Okay. I don't know if anybody else has any comments on this. I think at the very least, coming out of this meeting, we may need to make sure that we have something in writing as a recommendation to the commission that they push for, any direction that we can go to build this program. Go ahead, Bruce.
That was one idea I played around with, is getting a bigger boat that was a freezer boat. The freezer market and the fresh market isn't that far off anymore. And you could send a boat out west and just do fish for a couple months and just go from station to station to station, fish as many as you wanted out there and freeze everything. And then you could run it all the way down south when you were done and get a real good price for it down south. But the problem is, if 90% of the money is going to IPHC, I mean, you could talk about changing that split. Let's say they just wanted the data and they didn't want the cost, and you kept all the money. They're all underwater anyways. They'd probably pay you to do that, and still be ahead. It's a 90-10 split on the revenue from the fish. Well, nobody's going to go out there and fish 20 pounds of skate for 2 months and take 10% of the money. It just doesn't work. But maybe there's a formula where you could look at it where you take all the money. You insulate the IPHC from loss, right? They're all underwater. Maybe there's a different way to look at the accounting. We get all the data we want and it doesn't cost IPHC anything. It could be some analysis of that.
Susan?
Thank you, Norm. How many ports were sales done where there was only one buyer?
Last year, I want to say 3. There were 3. However, we do have ports where we often only receive one buyer's bid, but we might have, say, 2 or 3. But an independent buyer can't bid for whatever reason at that given sale. So we have a repeat buyer, because that's the only one that's physically capable of buying. Which brings me to a point that when you are registering to be an interested buyer for the survey, it's important that you're signing up for ports that you can physically process in, because we do still get people that say that they're interested in ports, but then they can't actually buy in those ports. So it's just a lot of wasted effort and time for everybody.
Dr. Webster, just a quick question on depredation. On slide 6 of your presentation, there's a chart that shows your depredation events. I'm assuming that those numbers, sperm whale 2 and 2B, 1 and 2C, yeah, this one. Those are events, those are days that you had interaction?
Uh,
What do those numbers represent?
Thank you. This is my presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
So these represent stations where the depredation met our ineffective parameters, which meant there was significant depredation and whales present at those stations. So those numbers are, so for example, 6 stations in 3A had sperm whales present and the catch was depredated on. Therefore, those stations were deemed ineffective for predominant depredation.
So we don't use the data from those stations.
Right.
Yes.
Doesn't this sort of contradict what we heard earlier about percentages of depredation, how often the occurrence was? I don't know, it just seems like there's a little more of it happening than what I was understanding.
So there's 22 stations that were deemed ineffective across coastwide. And if you advance to my next slide, this shows that those 22 stations were made up 4.22% of the total survey for 2025.
That's even taking into account that we fished a lot less stations than what we would
Yeah,
typically.
that 4.22% is of that 515 stations.
Okay.
The ones that we physically sampled, yes.
All right, thank you. Peggy?
Sorry, I'm a little slow, I think, this morning. The previous slide, the numbers in the cells, the 6 and the 10, represent incidences of whales preying on the fish.
Yeah, that's each count is one station.
Right.
Where ultimately we
So-
couldn't deem the data collected from that station as effective, therefore it was removed from, their
Okay,
analysis.
you couldn't deem.
Correct.
So help me understand what couldn't deem means.
Yeah.
Is it 1 whale? Is it 20 whales?
I'd have to pull up our full write-up. We have outlined specifications on both sperm whale and orca predation, whether there be presence of lips on the line, whether there physically be whales present within a certain distance. Again, I'd have to pull up. the
I
full
think I've
list.
seen
Yeah,
that, what you're
yes, yeah.
describing.
We
Okay.
have defined parameters that we say if the station meets these parameters, therefore it is deemed ineffective.
So I'm just curious, there isn't any way, looking at that list of definitions for whether or not you include a number here, or whether you include that station, because you're counting stations really, you're not counting whales.
Correct. We also do document like sightings and interactions in general separately.
Can you
outside.
quantify it?
Every whale you see? No.
Just more than 10, less than 10, something a little bit more,
I mean,
just a thought.
correct me if I'm wrong. I would say generally when there's whales of that degree, we are recording it as a depredated station because the station shows it that.
Right.
I can't think of a situation where we're seeing, a sizable amount of whales and the station's not been
We're quite
impacted.
cautious
Yes,
in
yeah.
accepting data.
Yeah, we just were hearing that the survey doesn't comport with the industry, with the fishery in terms of seeing whales. And so I think we're just trying to round that square for us to understand it better.
They operate very differently than the fishery, right? I mean, the survey does operate differently than the
Yes, yeah.
fishery. We reach a spot, we don't linger, we move on. There's some flexibility for the skippers to come back to a station or group of stations if they see marine mammals present. So I'm not sure how comparable they are.
Craig?
I'm trying to find it. How many stations in 3A did you guys fish? this year? I know it's here somewhere, but I've got too many tabs open.
Yakutat and Prince William Sound made up about 130 stations.
Okay. Six. So you had whale predation on 4.6% of your hauls. So as someone who catches a lot of halibut and a lot of blackcod, I would probably give away my grandkids if I could only have 4.6%. We're more at 46%. We actually fished areas that I've never gone because we got driven off the edge this year. And actually, I was working in tandem with one of your survey boats out there to say, hey, let me know when you're hauling. I'll start hauling pots 45 minutes before to get them off you, because they were there. So, I mean, that's real time real data that we're seeing whales on half of the sets that we're hauling in 3A.
We are also fishing areas that nobody wants to fish commercially because they have low densities. So you may be fishing the best spots of 3A. We visit those spots once, and then we go to other places that may not be so viable for commercial vessels.
And they were also chasing us in on the beach, like almost to Yakutat. And so they're everywhere. Just our, representative of what we see is on line edge.
And I think it's going to get worse.
Getting better.
Okay, I think we probably hammered this topic enough. I think you guys, just know that we support you. The PAB supports. It's very important to the PAB as well to the conference board that we have a robust survey program. And if there's anything that we can do to support you, please reach out. And I would again suggest maybe sending out some sort of a postcard to that list that NIMS has for holders. You'll get some people that you haven't contacted, I think. So, all right, thank you. I think we're done with these guys, or with Dr. Webster anyway. Kayla can't leave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Webster. Okay. We've done fishing periods. That's taken care of. Next thing on the agenda is some discussion around mortality limits. That's probably going to be a fairly lengthy topic. But, and I don't expect that we're going to come out of with a decision or a vote in today's meeting, but trying to get to an idea where we're all in a good spot, and then maybe have the vote in the morning would be my thought. Do we think maybe we could throw the mortality projection tool up on the screen and then play with numbers in that as a start? Let's see how it works. Liam, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to change the opening date to March 26, 6 a.m. I know we've already discussed it, but the tides in Canada are no good. March 20th.
26th, yes? So the motion is to change the opening date to March 26th. Bill seconds. Discussion? Go ahead, Heather.
I was just going to ask him to speak to his motion a little bit more.
Yeah, March 20th, the tide run fishable in Canada. There's not much more to say.
It's a kind of a broad statement.
I guess I was looking at a different tide book when I got, because I thought that they were pretty good, and the tides in Alaska are gonna be the same as they are in Canada, so I'm totally, okay with that suggestion. Maybe I just read something wrong, but anyway, any other discussion on this? 26 doesn't really make any difference for me. What day is that?
I'm just going with the advice of our fishermen. So it's Thursday, yeah.
Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
Greg?
vote?
Yeah, I would fully support that. I just knew that we needed to be after the 15th, and I think there's Boston and other stuff going on. Came up the 20th, because we talked about a Friday. Fully support, 25th, 26th.
I'm quite sure that on our side that NIMS would appreciate any extra time that they have, so. Yeah. I'll just ask if there's anybody in opposition.
The whole Canadian guys want that. They all agree on that breakout this morning, so we're all good with it.
Okay. US side, we're all good? Okay. Motion carries 26th, March 26th for opening.
Oh, no, dude.
Okay, we're on pause here for a minute, see if we can get that projection tool up where we can see it. No, because there was a unanimous. Yep. enter the TCY as for status quo for last year, which was 38.95. 38. Carl?
Format goes on like delaying some of these votes, because then you have to like, doesn't the report need to be finalized for tomorrow afternoon with the new schedule? Okay. 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 Sounds good.
Yeah, we're not going to develop the report until after tomorrow morning. There's going to be, hopefully, Joseph's going to have a preliminary report from what came out of the meeting today to review for this evening. And then we'll edit it tomorrow after we make our decisions on catch limits. Plan A.
Are we waiting for
And
something?
as, Mr. Chair, what about motions such as we were discussing earlier about the FIS? Do you want those today or do you want those tomorrow as well?
It would probably be good to have them today, just to make things a little speedier in the morning.
Okay. Maybe we could have a few minutes to kind of confer to make sure that we don't mess around with motion and amendment and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Because there were some good ideas floating around. We could kind of put them all together and make a motion that made sense to everybody.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be right now. I'm just suggesting that as a short break. And
Okay,
I got one quick question.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I should have said this when we were talking about the FIS stuff. I'm just going to jump back for a sec. They just changed 3 of the charter areas, and the deadline for submitting bids is February 1st. I'd like to move that we get a 14-day extension for submitting our bids. If anybody's interested, or we're okay with that. Second that? Thanks, Heather. You okay with that? So from the 1st to the 14th or 15th or whatever day of the week that is. Even 13th. 13th is a Friday. Is that okay? By that Friday? So you okay with that, Heather? 13th? Is that okay with Kayla? How's that rock your world?
No, that doesn't rock my world. But I would say if we're going to propose that, it would probably be that Sunday at midnight. So the 15th. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair, could you tell me what it is that is it the deadline for submitting proposals? Okay, thanks.
You took out Yakutat and Prince William Sound and you put in Fairweather and Gore Point and you added Goose, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Greg?
So, was talking with Carl, maybe we're gonna get hung up on mortality limits. Is it, I was thinking that maybe we can do items, agenda 6 and 7 and get that knocked out. And if we have some time before the end of the day, we can start on mortality limits. And so that leaves us just that, a thought.
It's a thought. I just want to make sure that we have time, that we leave the room with at least an idea of where we're headed, without a vote, so that people can sleep on it and then actually have the vote tomorrow. So I don't want to get to a point where we just don't talk about it and then have to take it up in the morning, because it could take some time. But yeah, I'm fine with jumping ahead on the agenda if that's what we want to do. I was hoping that this mortality projection tool, that we could just play with it around the room and throw numbers in there. But seem to be having technical difficulties with making that happen. Yes.
I wonder if you have to populate the regulatory.
I honestly don't know. I haven't operated this tool before. I've just watched it done. Should we jump ahead to 6.1, the fishery regulation proposals? There's not many. That should be fairly easy. Cross off. Can we start with B1?
Those are usually decided at the council, and I don't know if, I think it's a placeholder, like, am I wrong on that? Like the IPHC's proposals are placeholders.
If I may.
I think
Yes.
Usually the PAB does not need to weigh on proposals relating to the recreational fishery. That's.
I'm sorry, what was the last part
That
of
the
that?
PAB does not need to weigh in
Got
on
that.
regulatory proposals related to the recreational fishery.
Exactly. But we do weigh in on stakeholder proposals, so the C1, 2, and 3.
Okay, do we not note that we've reviewed these?
We could, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And we could really weigh in on them and give our thoughts on that, but usually it is decided once we know what the total quota is going to be, then they'll divide it up.
Okay, so we're just gonna note that we've read these and then jump, yes,
One to P3.
yes. And then jump to C1. That's also sport fishing. Oh, this is the one fish bag limit. This is the generator of 900 comments. It's got to be some kind of record. I would, again, I don't think there's a decision that needs to be made by the PAB here. No.
I think, I'm looking at a different one, but I think for C1, we wanted, I think some of what the stakeholders had said about this was that we would like the issue to be addressed at the council. And if the IPHC advisory bodies could encourage the commissioners to make that request a strong one, that this is a problem that is growing. It's now, we've recognized that it's growing, that would be helpful for the council to do something about it. It is making a big change to a plan, a catch sharing plan. It would take years to get it down, but we have to start somewhere. And this seems to be undeniably growing now. So.
Well,
Yeah.
my takeaway, Peggy, from that I think where the real challenge in this, and I agree, this is something that needs to be addressed, and I'm hearing it from a lot of different areas, is the separation of the resident versus non-resident. You know, I certainly didn't read 900 submitted comments, but I did read 50 probably, and just went through them. And my biggest takeaway was the folks that are having a really hard time with it are the resident sport fishermen that are putting fish in their freezers, and that they're getting lumped into this when the real issue is the unguided non-resident harvest. So I don't know if we want to call that out in a proposal that this is the thing that needs to be addressed. And I honestly don't know the legality of whether they can separate that or not. The very last proposal that I read this morning was from the Alaska State Legislature saying that IPHC doesn't have any ability to manage this, which I caught Bob Alverson in the hallway and asked him, and he said he raised that question as well, and he felt like we absolutely could because it's an IPHC allocation measure that setting that quota, so that he felt like they had every ability to set that. Who's right? I don't know, but
IPHC doesn't set the allocation quota for charter operators. That's done by the council and their catch sharing plan. They set a overall limit for the regulatory area. And that's
well, I
where
might have
they stop.
misinterpreted what he was saying about how it should be done, but he
Yeah,
did. He
maybe.
was clear that he thought that they had the ability to manage it. Heather.
So when this came up at the council, this most recent council meeting, there was kind of a general agreement that it was a problem that affected all sectors, and that the regulatory bodies of the state and the feds and IPHC, those should all work together to try to come up with a solution, a management solution, a regulatory solution. More recently, I spoke to the Commissioner of Fish and Game, who is, as you know, a member of the council, has a seat on the council, and he was pretty adamant that the IPHC, I'm laughing because he's always pretty adamant, but he said, I don't know what they're worrying about that. We need to have the council look at it, and intends, I believe, to bring it as a member of the council to the council for discussion and potential action. The state's got a lot of power at the council table, having most of the votes. And so I do think that it will be dealt with at the council level. And people seem to think that there would be utility in having IPHC commissioners write a letter recommending that the council take this up with all speed.
Susan?
Yes, I was talking to Linda in passing, and I mentioned this at a state level, and she said, I want to say a representative from Sitka was working on this to regulate the charter system, and so maybe impose some rules on them so it's not so easy for anyone to come up and just take a boat out. So they're working on in that aspect too. So it would behoove everybody to talk to their representative to try to work on this too, as if you're a state, if you live in the state of Alaska.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Well, not to confuse things, but I appreciate that, and I heard Linda say that too. I also have heard Forrest talk about petitioning the IPHC to raise the overall quota in 2B and 3A because they're losing this money, this fish, to this new class of stakeholders, let's just call them, who used to just take they were anglers, they were just anglers, and now they're, for the most part, coming from outside Alaska on cruise ships and to stay at lodges. Maybe there's other reasons that they come, but they're getting bareboat charters with a GPS, with specific places of where there's halibut, and they're able to take exactly what an angler would take. So it completely subverts the catch sharing plan. It's not part of the catch sharing plan at all. So Forrest is asking for an increase to accommodate for that because the charters, he's saying, are losing that business. I think it's not something that the charter industry or sector needs to deal with because it's lodges, it's cruise ship people, So I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's bigger maybe than just working with the charters.
So would the PAB support just asking the commission to write a letter asking the council, thank you, to address this?
I would say recognizing the authority of the council.
Okay. Anybody have a problem with that idea? Don't think so. Okay,
Can't vote.
yeah, we can vote. Let's try it.
Nobody argued.
Nobody argued.
So we're not actually voting on this fishery regulation proposal?
No. We are just making a recommendation. Yeah, we need a motion. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the PAB recommend to the commission that they write a letter to the council, the North Pacific Fishery Management Council, recommending or maybe asking that they consider putting this issue of bareboat charter regulation on their agenda.
Susan
I'll
seconds.
second.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Okay. Are we ready to hit buttons?
One moment, it'll show,
Okay. All right. Drum roll.
No kidding.
Okay, so everybody can hit buttons now?
Vote is open.
Pretty slick.
So what happens when you step out?
That's good.
Did everybody hit their clickers? Okay, vote is closed, 15 in favor and 1 abstention.
And minutes will show the breakdown by country.
Okay. Can we go back to the proposals now? Okay, the next item, Prop C2, speaks to retention outside of the regular commercial fishing period. Propose a 3-year pilot program authorizing limited retention of legal size Pacific halibut caught incidentally as bycatch outside the halibut commercial fishing period and year-round hook and line trap and ground fisheries in IPHC regulatory 2B. So maybe one of our 2B guys here in the room can speak to this.
You're not paying attention.
Can you speak to what this is about, what's happening, why we need this?
Oh, yeah, I can. This is kind of been something we've talked about off and on for years, and it's about because the halibut's closed and the blackcod's open, that's the principal reason. All the other ground fish is open year-round in Canada, and if they do catch any black halibut, they can't retain it, and they have to cover it off with expensive quota. This is a way that they can bring it in as long as it, and the reason they want to do a trial is because they want to make sure that people don't fudge around and intentionally catch a bit of halibut bycatch. It needs to be kind of, a lot of the groundfish fisheries are kind of cooperatively managed, and the outliers are kind of disciplined by the rest of the fleet. We don't want to abuse it. We don't want anybody else to abuse it. But if somebody is in a directed fishery and they accidentally catch a few halibut, it's a pretty hefty penalty for doing it if you have to cover it with quota and then throw it away. So we just want to make sure that we do a 3-year trial and that we police it so we don't abuse that privilege. And if it does, we do see that it's abused, then we can stop it.
Any comments? Go ahead.
Forgive me if I missed something, but what are the ideas to monitor and police it?
Well, all the groundfish has to be monitored on the landings anyways, right? It'll go in the log books, it'll be in the monitoring cameras, and it'll be on the landing slips monitored by the third party, whether it's Archipelago or J.O. Thomas, it's all monitored. So whatever, it'll be quantified when it comes in.
How are you going to decide whether it's being targeted or is actually bycatch?
Yeah, that's the tough question, and that's why they want to do it as a trial. You know, because it's a small community right now, and you know, especially in BC, the trawlers are under a lot of scrutiny. Everybody is under a lot of scrutiny. We've got the live rock cod guys fishing, and we've got the black cod pot boats and longliners. It would be a great privilege, and if somebody abuses it, it would be sort of the pack mentality almost, if that's the right way to say it, that to make sure that we don't lose that privilege. We don't want to see anybody abuse it. I think the people that are asking for that privilege are going to make sure that we maintain that integrity. But that's all I got. That's the best answer. It's not that tangible.
Mark?
Bruce, where does that fish go to? Does it go into the commercial market or how or not?
Yeah, it does. Right now,
Or where
well,
would it
it's
go?
discarded half and half. Like
Right.
right now, the trawl bycatch it goes into a tote at the docks, unloaded, and it's supposed to be destroyed.
Correct.
We could argue about that one all day, but at least this way it is quantified and it's not wasted.
But the reason that's discarded on the trawl and everything else, that's to avoid people going out and
Absolutely.
targeting it, catching
Yes.
it, bringing it in, even though
Yeah.
it should go to food banks or whatever else.
Yeah.
That's why, what's the difference of trying to keep people honest?
Well, I think if you see a proliferation of it by an individual or in an area, we're just relying on all of us to wolf pack on those people and do it. We've been doing it. They've got an overage. there's some things that we're allowed to do in Canada, like the L license guys, after they catch a certain amount of black halibut, there's a stepping system where they can take more black cod, and those limits, there's been a couple of characters abuse that a couple of times, and the industry goes after them in our committees, or the Sablefish Association or the Halibut Association. Everybody there goes, hey, you know, the guy's a bad actor, and should we take some action against them? There are things we have at our disposal to scrutinize those people. And it's a very small group, and the rest of us benefit by it. So we're pretty vigilant about making sure, especially, and that's the reason why I'm making it a trial. Go ahead, Liam. Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I thought I heard them mention the 500-pound trip limit. I'm not sure. I don't see it in writing anywhere. So
You know what? There's a couple questions that DFO could probably answer for us. That's a good one. I don't know the answer to that. And the other one is, right now, what do they think they are discarding? What are we talking about here? I don't know that either. And that's kind of important to that decision, you know. It might be hard to define. I don't know.
Susan?
That was my question.
Yeah.
Is there a threshold, a limit that they can, or is it based on percentage of what they deliver, or?
Maybe we can get Glenn or Neil or somebody to find that information. I'm not
There's
sure.
somebody from DFO here.
Yeah, Gwen Mason's here, Neil Davis.
I think it's 2% of the of the FCEY that can't 2B gets. It's in here. I'm just reading it myself for the first time. And they do talk about a 500 piece. This has been going on for a while and it hasn't been used much. I heard, and in reading this proposal, it said the data and analysis of discarded legal size Pacific halibut data during the closed period for 22 to 24, those years, indicates less than 500 pieces were recorded per year. Is that fish?
500 pieces per year.
Is that fish?
Pieces is fish, yeah.
Okay, thanks. And my big question is, since this is the only exclusion to the rule that halibut cannot be sold unless it's caught by longline, the percentage of trawls that catch this, and as you said, they don't sell it for the most part, but I was curious why, or
They're not
maybe I
allowed.
don't know. So in the
It's
discussion
only out
about-
of season, and they don't sell any, none is sold.
Right. So when, in the discussion of this, was there ever a thought to not allow them to sell it and to maybe use it for food banks or whatever?
They can't sell it now.
They can't sell it now.
If the fish comes on the boat now, they have to
Back. They have to discard it, but it goes in their logbook, and they have to cover that catch with quota for fish they've discarded. Yeah.
Bill?
The fish that you do. If you shake them off at the rail, is that counted part of the bycatch?
Well, it's not.
You know,
Yeah.
if you don't bring them on board, you just shake them right there and they never
Yeah.
touch the
They
boat.
shake them right there, and there's what? Do you know what how much quota they allocate it to it when they do it? I don't know how they do that, but they have to cover it.
They have to cover it.
Yeah.
I think they have.
Is it a?
They have to measure it. They have to measure the weight of fish.
I see.
And then they
Yeah.
pay mortality on the quota.
It's got better survivability if it's just shake it right then and don't bring it on the boat.
Yeah, you gotta measure it to know how big it is, to know how much quota is coming off of your boat.
And it's counted in the TAC, but it's not landed or sold,
So you're not trying to keep the fish alive then?
Well,
whether they do or not. They have to cover it.
So they're assuming that fish is a removal even though you released it?
Yep.
Wow.
They have to measure them. And, you know, the quota in Canada is expensive. It's expensive to catch fish out of season. They go to great lengths to not catch it.
Mm.
Right? So, but the question is, will they continue to? And if they don't, we'll see it in the numbers, and then we'll stop the trial.
I think it would be interesting to see what's happening now. Because theoretically, yeah, it's coming out of the quota, but that's probably the highest value fish of the year. Let's say if you sold it, right? Because off season, the only thing around. But if you had the data for what is currently being harvested and discarded, I mean, I fully support
That's
not
what
throwing
Peggy
this
just
back,
answered
right?
that.
So
Yeah.
if you had that, set your limit there, comes out of the quota still, it seems pretty fair. If you had the data of what's happening now, and that was your threshold for percent of catch, because we know if you put a percent of catch, that's going to be attained, or a piece limit or whatever. And then be allowed to use it.
That was the question. Was there talk about a cap? The cap is 2%, or they're saying it's 2% now? Oh, yeah.
Of the TAC, sorry.
Okay,
Here's our resident expert right here.
if you could grab
Do you
that
wanna s-
microphone, please.
Can you speak to that, Gwen, please?
Just got in the room. Is it the cap, the proposed cap for the year
Yes.
round?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Robert Hockness's proposal, he was proposing a maximum of 2% of the directed halibut commercial TAC, provided that it is remaining at the end of the directed season.
So if commercial harvested 100%, there wouldn't be any
Correct.
available.
Correct.
Peggy?
So I was a little confused because I thought this had been done before. So I see that Robert's proposal is to start it on a 3-year starting in 26. So what has happened with it before? People just get fined?
Yeah, so after the directed fishery closes, halibut are not permitted to be retained and brought to the dock. If they are confiscated at the dock, and then an occurrence report is written up and sent to enforcement for follow-up.
Do they have a guesstimate on how much if they catch a fish that they do discard, they have to measure it and they have to cover it with quota right now, right? Do we know how much is going right now?
I would have to take a look at the stats that I have put together, but for halibut discards, legal halibut discards, an average weight of 21 pounds is applied, and then depending on gear type will determine the mortality rate that's applied against it. So if it's caught using longline gear, it would be 16% of that 21 pound fish that would be applied per fish that is released.
See.
Mark?
What would be the estimate at 2%? Because I can't at this point figure that out myself. Right now for the TAC of 225 or 2025, what would the amount of fish be?
Sorry, 2025 in tons.
Just
No, that's the year, how many fish were
this
harvested.
year, sorry.
Let me get out my computer. I don't have it on top of my head.
Sorry.
While she's looking, just to comment, I'm sympathetic to this as well, but it's going to set a precedent. Right now, with the halibut quota as low as it is, we now in Alaska have a directed yellow eye fishery again in the wintertime. And they can catch a fair amount of bycatch halibut in that fishery. And if there's if Canada opens up the door to have a winter bycatch of halibut, that Alaska is going to come knocking as well.
What do they do with it now?
Shake it, release it.
And there's no quota, there's no penalty, there's no mortality.
There is not. No.
So there's some missing parts there already.
I don't think we have the same viewpoint in Alaska that a released fish is a removal. There is certainly mortality there, but yes.
Mr. Chairman, is there any idea of how much fish that is?
For
the yellow eye fishery? I mean,
not
just
yet.
curious.
They're hedging their bets. They're waiting for, they're not going to make that determination on setting the quota until we get done at this meeting and set halibut quotas, so that they want to make sure that they retain enough for bycatch in the halibut fishery before they open that door. So
But isn't opening that door?
the last time that they did this last year, and I think that the total removals were around 150, 160,000 pounds total for Southeast around Yelloweye.
But doesn't that open the door for other fisheries? Everybody's going to want a bycatch to be able to do it in off season?
There's no incentive to
What's
avoid
that?
halibut though, right? It doesn't matter. You just shake them. You don't care.
Right. There's no disincentive.
I mean, where the quotas are now, though, 150 some odd thousand is a substantial amount of fish for one bycatch and one fishery. That's,
It's not a bycatch, it's a directed fishery.
well, I understand, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's caught during that fishery. Or is that the
No,
yellow
we're
eye
talking about,
150,000?
that's the Yelloweye
Oh,
quota.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no idea what the numbers would be for halibut. They're not gonna be that much. There's not a lot of fish around, but there are a few.
Okay, that's why I was confused.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
too.
Same thing.
No, not 150,000 pounds of halibut. No, not even
Wow.
close.
But 2% of the TAC from 225 in Canada would be,
76,295 pounds.
thank you. Sorry.
Nice work.
But you
No
threw
problem.
that. I probably got it.
If you're fishing yelloweye and you don't care whether you catch halibut or not, you're going to be fishing up where the great big homesteaders live on the rock piles and stuff, right? That's probably the worst fish you could possibly be catching. And there's no incentive to avoid that because you're fishing yelloweye. That's two of the most intermingled species of all the longlines fish, really, if you're in the rocks, up in the shallows where the yelloweye are. That's where the big old boys live. It doesn't sound right to me.
Girls.
Big old girls.
Big old girls, yeah. Susan, yeah. No, I wasn't.
That's Bruce you're talking about.
Greg?
I'd kind of like to hear from the rest of the 2B guys what they think about this. I mean, we've heard one.
I'll say something. I think in the name of sustainability this year, I mean, I can understand the rationale why guys would want to catch it, but like Bruce says, I mean, we're here for sustainability reasons. And looking at the stocks right now, I mean, as much as it is one of our fishermen who's pushing for it, and I support him, I just don't think this is the year to do something like that.
So any other discussion on this? Peggy?
This is definitely oversharing, but I'm gonna abstain from voting on this because it is allocative. Totally get both sides of it. Completely respect what Liam just said. And I'm a little concerned about Southeast's use of halibut for this without any accounting for it, even if it's just a tiny amount. Anyway, that's all I had.
Okay. We'll take it to a vote. So clarification, we're voting on AM 102 Proposition C2, halibut retention in the winter as a bycatch. Correct. Okay, the vote is open.
There's one piece of information that Gwen had, I mean, that we've already voted, but she said, just to educate yourselves a little bit more on this, in the public comment time in the conference board this morning, they haven't voted on this yet, by the way. Robert spoke to it with more detail, and it's available on the recording when after the conference, anybody wants to hear a little bit more about it. I mean, it's probably not going away, so it might flesh it out a bit better for people. So.
Yeah, so that vote was 2 in favor in Canada, 1 no, and 1 abstain. And 1 yes for the US, 3 no for the US, and 8 abstain.
Okay, moving on to Proposition C3. This is another sport fishing proposal to ensure that any proposed reduction to the unguided recreational Pacific halibut daily bag limit in Alaska is supported by region-specific biological and socioeconomic information provided by the United States and include analysis developed in cooperation with Alaska Department of Fish and Game prior to adoption by the Commission. Does anybody have any further information on this or comment? Greg?
There's some language down at the bottom of what they want to add in. Everybody should read it.
Can you read it out?
Oh, God. And consider it, add the following paragraph to section 228. In considering any reduction to the daily bag limit for unguided recreational sport fishing and convention waters off Alaska, the commission shall take into account region-specific biological and socioeconomic data provided by the United States, including analysis developed in cooperation with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. Any such reduction should be limited in scope to those regulatory areas for which region-specific analysis demonstrates a clear biological or socioeconomic basis for action. For clarity, this provision applies only to actions that further restrict unguided recreational backgammons and is not intended to limit the Commission's ability to relax or remove such restrictions.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I'm really not sure what he's after here.
Yeah. Is he suggesting that every decision we make is not scientific? Right? Like that's what I first
Right.
thought when I read that.
I mean, almost the takeaway is it kind of feels like he's not having a lot of faith in the commission being able to make those calls.
I think he wants to take it out of our hands. And from the reaction I've heard from the Commissioner of ADF and G, I think that says everything that needs to be said.
Heather?
Maybe we don't take any action on this.
I'm good with that. So let the record show that it was noted and that we're not going to take any action. Thank you. That's all of the proposals, yes? Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the discussion paper for IPHC subsidiary body operations areas for efficiency gains. Can we pull that up on the screen, please? So sorry. PAB031. Is that it in its entirety? We can scroll down further.
No, that's all.
Okay. So this is speaking to the proposal, the idea that we combine the PAB and the um, conference board, which I think both sides were not a big fan of. And this basically notes that they withdrew the proposal. So I think we just need to note that we reviewed this and agreed. Thanks to all that did weigh in on this. Susan?
Norm, do we make a statement thanking them for this and that they actually listened to our input?
We can.
I think it's a big deal that they actually listened to everybody.
Greg, is you're signaling something?
I'm wanting to say stuff, but I'm not going to say it.
Good idea.
I think what Susan said is a good idea. I can acknowledge that our input, but I see a room full of people who run businesses, and getting expenses under control is extremely important. And I'll leave it at that.
So are we good with just noting in that, Joseph, that we thank the Secretariat for recognizing our concern? Yeah, and not moving forward.
Isn't that what our vote?
Mr. Chairman, I think this conference board is also emphasizing that we support the need to save money, efficiencies and operations and all that. I think that would be good for us to think about and include it if we all agree.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I think that, go ahead, Heather.
I agree with what's being said. I just wanted to say that what strikes me is that this is an inefficient process still, even though it's going to be a little shorter than usual. It does seem to me that the kinds of presentations that the staff makes to the individual groups could be better done if we were all together. There's no reason why we shouldn't be all together for those presentations to ask questions and so forth. And as it is, there's all this back and forth, and we're looking for somebody, and they're over there, and it's been that way for as long as I've been coming here. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So it seems like there may be a way, and I'm not suggesting we suggest this, but just to say it to this group, there must be a way to make that a little bit smoother and not to have this constant back and forth and why can't we all hear it at the same time kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, I honestly think, I don't know how other people feel about it, but I mean, they made themselves very available for those presentations online. I attended all of them. We could shave a day off of this meeting. I mean, to go through those twice and then come here and go through them again, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
It's appreciated, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think we could shave another day off the meeting by just sticking to the online presentation.
And just have a question and answer session like we did here. And have it maybe combined with the conference board. It's interesting to me to hear the questions that come from the conference board as well. We might benefit from having a little closer relationship with them rather than having to run back and forth between the two rooms. I don't know. It's a lot of time spent waiting and doing all that stuff. This year has been good. And
Unless
I know
I'm a misunderstanding though, that's kind of going against the idea that we want to be a separate entity.
No, not in my mind. I think our discussions are separate from theirs and our decision-making process is different. And I think that's important. And that's why I supported opposing this idea, as you know.
Yep.
But I do believe that further efficiencies could be accomplished.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So I just wanted to put that on the table.
Okay, I think Bruce had a comment and then Peggy.
I think that the two boards' interests aren't always aligned. And I think that personally, as a PAB member, I've been frustrated that we haven't been listened to on much stuff sometimes. And I guess it's not a perfect system, but we all go to the commissioners and the commissioners decide subjectively how to weigh the input from the two bodies. But if we were sitting in the conference board right now fighting between processors, sporties, and commercial fishermen think the only guy that deserves to make a living is the guy that took the fish out of the water, right? So we're starting there, right? And then you can digress into everybody else's opinions too, but at least these two are separate. I mean, I think that if there was any really big issues, the PAB would rally and we would get heard more. I don't think we have any massive conflicts with them right now, but it's certainly nice to be quantified as a body, I think, you know.
That I agree. And I wrote that when we were asked for comment. I completely agree with what you said. I'm not suggesting they be combined. I'm just saying that some of the functions that we have during these meetings might be combined for efficiency's sake. And I agree with Norm regarding the over and over again of the presentations. I don't know that we need all that. So that's all.
Thank you, Heather. Peggy.
Well, I like the idea. I like the ideas that have been brought up here, but I also want to hearken back to an older time when we could, after the first presentations, this was before we had the virtual presentations, which I think are great. But it was at the plenary session for the annual meeting that the staff would come up and give their presentations, and Ian's stock assessment was always one that garnered a lot of questions afterwards. And right now, the only people who are allowed to ask questions of those presentations are the commissioners themselves. If we had the opportunity to ask of Ian, perhaps of Ray, perhaps of Alan, their programs after they make the presentation, that might cut down on a lot of the, well, I don't really remember what he said, the next day when the advisory bodies meet. So it's something that I don't think would add any time to this truncated schedule. And I don't like I'm a little nervous of the idea of not having a presentation made at the plenary session. So we are all together. The conference board and the PAG are all together for the PAB are all together for the presentations on Monday. And if we could ask questions then, I think that would be tremendously helpful for coming in then the next morning and discussing these things. And if we really got snagged on something that was really complex, we could have Ian come in and explain it. But for most of us, it would be fresh in our minds already. We got to have our questions asked the day before. Right now, the number of people who ask questions at the end of that whole session, which is not right after the presentation, but it's after many presentations, is a lot smaller. The number is fewer people, and the subjects are all over the place. It's, you only have one chance to ask a question, so you're going to ask all the questions. So maybe we could include something like that in this motion.
Well, I think that the method the format that they used was by design, in the fact that if you get everybody together in that room and allow them the opportunity to ask questions, that one presentation might take all day. And I think that that's probably way to try and address that challenge. And maybe, we had our online presentations separately as PAB and conference board, and we could combine those presentations and have the PAB and the conference board online simultaneously in a group discussion and schedule a day for it, not an hour or something, but sufficient time. And how long that takes every year is going to be different because there's different topics to discuss, and some are going to be more volatile than others. But if we're looking at increasing efficiency, I don't know that. I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea, but just thinking through the, having a question and answer session with the commissioners, with the conference board, with the PAB, and staff presentations all at once. That's going to be a bit arduous.
I'm willing to support that idea instead of, going back to what we did before.
Yeah, I think we could certainly do a more robust online presentation, that we could get the commissioners involved in that. And I'm sure that they'd probably be willing. I don't know. I do know, I do a lot of Zoom and Teams invites these days. And one challenge in that, and probably some of the other people in this room can support this, is sometimes it's difficult to get a word in, right? To be heard, and having it in person probably makes that a little easier. But it's gotten better. But people have different skill set levels with the technology. There's always technology issues in those, but we're all getting better at it, even us old guys. But yeah, Carl.
I just think like between the interim meeting and then getting the stock assessments presented to each of the boards beforehand, then coming here and then having to listen to it sort of yesterday in full again, and then just listen to the commissioners ask their questions to the IPHC staff. Like, that process could be eliminated, and then it could just condense into 2 days, pretty much.
It's kind of where I was headed. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Maybe we'll take a little break, and then the next thing was an agenda. We got to go back to catch limits here and have some discussion. So it could take a little bit. You guys want to take a 10-minute break? Convene here and get the show back on the road.
Thanks for the printing, guys. This is our Canadian stuff.
So we are circling back to item 3.1, mortality limits and CEY. Again, I think I said this before, I'll reiterate that I'm not looking to take this to a vote or decision, but I just want to get a sense of where everybody's at, if we can get there, and then take it to a vote tomorrow morning after people have had time to sleep on it. So that being said, I'll open it up for discussion. Does anybody want to lead out with some thoughts? I'll just start out. I guess that nobody's wanting to fire up. That there was some discussion earlier about status quo across the board. How is everybody feeling about that?
Yes.
I think it's sensible.
Does it have a negative impact on the resource?
That's really hard to determine. I mean, listen to the science. It could go either way at our current harvest level. From everything that we've heard, I would love to say yes. Or, I mean, I would love to say no, that it's not. I want to, no, sorry, that came out wrong. But yeah, I want to do what's good for the resource, what's best for the resource. And at status quo, I'm not really sure if that's the right direction. I came in this meeting hearing a lot of talk about a reduction. In the room next door, there's a lot of There was a lot of support for that at the beginning. The sports guys have lobbied pretty hard against that. And they've got a pretty loud voice in there, and it's carried a little bit of weight. But I'm not, we need to do what's best for the fishery, and I'm not sure that status quo is it. Yeah, I think we've heard pretty clearly from our staff that they're uncertain whether status quo and F43 is the right level for increasing the biomass. Susan.
Thank you. The question, I've heard a lot about the US sports fishermen, the Alaska sports fishermen, but where are the Canadian sports fishermen? Are there some on the conference board? And if so, another part is, what is their percentage of the catch that they receive from of the Canadian quota? I'm sorry, I don't have access to my computer, so I have no way of looking these up. So what would be my question number one is the Canadian sports fishing business represented over there?
It is. Yeah.
Are their processors concerned about the amount that the sports fishermen get, or is that, are you guys just all happy to get whatever quantity you end up with?
Bruce?
Well, there's sort of, one thing I liked about this meeting last year was we're getting away from this Canada versus US shit so much. I mean, it's going to come up once in a while, but it's not a big fight like it was. But I'm just saying the Canadians all want to start meddling into 2C and start telling you what to do there and stuff like that. And I don't think they should.
No, sorry, that
Did I
wasn't
misunderstand?
that wasn't my intent. My intent was, do you work with I was just curious what work goes on with your sports fleet or your recreational catch up there.
Do you have the conflict that the US side is having with sports versus commercial?
For sure, but maybe they spend a lot of time telling us how great they are and how honest they are and how good it is. And, I don't think the animosity between the commercial sector and the sporties is as bad in Canada as it is, because they seem to feel they have a better handle on it. But even at the RAB meetings in December, there's a lot of hostility between the guided and the unguided guys. And, probably not as bad in Canada, but the same issues, Susan. So I don't know if that's an answer or not.
I did a little digging last night, and I just Googled it, honestly, and so I don't know how accurate the information is, but I Googled how many non-resident sport fishing licenses were sold in Alaska last year, 2025, 493,000 licenses.
Good God. Times 10 pounds is 5 million
Non-resident.
pounds.
So I'm going to just give you guys a little reference for what, I live in a town of 500 people, Yakutat. We have, 5 years ago, we had maybe a dozen charter boats, all local guys that were doing what they're doing. 2 years ago, the unguided that we keep hearing about started showing up. We now have 30 to 40 unguided lunds going out, and I've had to freaking pull 5 dead bodies out of the ocean because of these idiots.
Unguided.
Open skiffs. They're like, the one guy, he's like, somebody told me the halibut fishing is better in the breakers. And so this is a father and a son we pull off the beach. So just, I don't.
Just in Yakutat.
This is just Yakutat. And like I said, it's a really, really small town. We have daily northbound and southbound jet service, but come May 15th, you can't get a ticket. We went from 3 lodges to 5 lodges and probably 30, bed and breakfast things now. So what's going on with the sport? And I guess that number that Norm said doesn't surprise me. And we're at the beginning of the richest generation ever in the United States retiring. And the amount, I can remember, they've got some term for it, like the massive transfer of wealth. You know, why can we may pay $10 for halibut this year. Why? Because they don't give a shit. Because it doesn't matter. Money isn't material. You know, so we're going to see an increase, I think, in the next 5 years, probably of 500% of this situation. And it's going to impact this board and our quotas more and more and more. But they're coming, and they don't care because they've got more money than they know what to do with.
Are they mostly from outside?
Yes, this is all out. This is all lower 48 and there's actually quite a few groups coming in from Germany, Italy, Spain, all over the world. Yeah. It's a huge selling thing. I mean, it's, the community gets overwhelmed. Basically, we get a barge service every 4 weeks. You better do your shopping the first week of the barge, because by week 2.5, there's nothing on the shelves.
Mr. Chair.
I went into that. I looked it up for a little bit different reason. I was shocked at the number that I saw, but
I told search and rescue, I said, don't call me anymore, because dealing with dead people sucks. Yeah. And dealing with stupid dead people makes you even madder. But no, and it's, we just had a guy show up last fall with another dozen boats. So it's just, and this is just.
Is he local?
So that guy
Oh, God,
rents
no.
boats
So
to
they're not locals. They're
people.
sold to rent these boats.
No. The lodges are not owned
Well,
locally,
that's what I'm thinking.
and they're just.
That is why I said that a state representative is looking into some kind of regulation. So you just can't take any tin can up there, put it in the water and say, here you go, here's a piece of paper, just follow this line out and you'll find a fish. If you're a fisherman, you know all the regulations you have to go through. You can barely have toilet paper on your boat. And these guys have carte blanche to go out and do whatever they want because it's unregulated.
But there's always been people that have done that though, right?
Not in these numbers. Because
Oh, I understand that. I understand.
No, but
So-
you don't usually have access to a boat as easily. You're not renting a boat as
You're right.
easily.
Yeah. It's a little bit difficult. So, I mean, it's like Darwin's theory almost.
And these guys are paying $500-600 a day to do this.
Really?
Yes.
Why don't they just go on the guided tour and be safer
Well, restriction.
and actually catch fish?
Yeah.
Because the people are making money renting the boats and not paying a guide.
The also very important factor to this is that they have a lot higher catch limits when they go out and go unguided as they do when they're on a guided boat. That's what it's all about. They can keep twice as many fish. Bruce?
I got two statements and a question. One is the beef is kind of all that, but the beef is that it's unreported catch, right? That's part of it. But we're saying that their
Voluntarily.
reporting is poor, and they were going crazy about that in RAB, that they're bringing in 10 times more fish than they say they are, and it's unregulated. So that's where we got a problem. And they're also lobbying to take a higher percentage of the TAC, or are they not? Those are the two beefs. Now I can't remember what my question was. My question was, you guys, we don't really need the Canadians meddling around with a problem that's kind of primarily 2C, isn't it? Now these guys are, I know what I was, these guys are fishing salmon, lingcod. Now they're increasing how much blackcod they do. They're kind of unregulated in all of it. Well, how do we quantify this as a halibut entity? What do we want? What's our ask? We boil it down to an ask.
Heather?
I think didn't we already pass a motion asking the North Pacific Council to look at it and to deal with it? And
For unguided, yes.
For unguided, yeah. So that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
We're back to it. So, yeah.
To look at it or to do something?
To write a letter asking the North Pacific Council to figure out a way to address this.
Yeah. And they're primed to do that.
But that's great, address it. But I mean, if we want somebody to address it, means go do something, do whatever you want. We should have something we want them to do. Shouldn't we have an ask that represents our best interests? Instead of saying, look at this, see ya.
So include in it a motion that they're restricted to one fish or something along those lines?
Or some reporting, or I don't know, or limit their share of the TAC until they get their shit together because they're dangerous. I don't know. We should have an ask.
Why it's not in there is because the unguided includes everybody that goes out in a lund, right? Including, right now, it's not separated by resident, non-resident. So I think that the ask is that it needs to be directed at the non-resident. Peggy, you had a comment?
Okay.
Thank you. So this conversation started out talking about TCEY and people's thought about it. And they got some questions to you guys about the sports sector in your province. And then it shifted to the big problem we have in Alaska, the Alaskans have. I can't say I am anymore. So yes, the problem with going back to Heather's motion on C1, it was to ask the council to address this issue. The issue is bigger than the council, actually, because if it's going to be, if the solution is resident versus non-resident, the state has to get involved in that too. So I think we don't know enough to be able to be as specific as you would like right now. I really appreciate you pushing on that we need to ask specifically or tell them specifically what we want to do. Maybe next year we'll be there, but I don't think we are this year. And of course, the people who go up to Alaska are going to be keeping an eye hard and fast on what the council does, what the state does. The state legislature's involved now. So yeah, but I guess what I would like to try to do is go back to TCEY and just take maybe a round robin of what people think about what we should do with that this year.
Okay, I just have one parting comment on that. Like in Herring in San Francisco, the out-of-state permits cost significantly more than the state residence permits, right? If we've got people coming up that are non-Alaska residents and their fees should be high enough to pay for better monitoring or to pay for better catch quantification or scrutiny of catch limits and stuff. Those people that are coming up and abusing the Coast Guard and the safety and the, whatever they're abusing their lives should be paying for that somehow, so that the resource isn't paying for it by unquantified catch, right?
Heather?
One of the first things that'll happen if the council takes this up, which I fully expect them to do, is that they'll do a problem statement. They'll do an analysis. They'll do maybe a white paper. I don't know what how quickly they're going to try to do it, but I think they'll do it pretty quickly because there's a lot of pressure, as you saw from all the comments and stuff. So I am completely convinced that they will take into consideration all of the things that we've been talking about, the safety issues and everything else, the cost, the problem with this, including U.S. residents who are just trying to feed their families, Alaska residents. So I do think that that analysis will deal with all those issues. So, yeah, I hope I'm right.
Yeah, me
Me too.
Okay. Back to the idea of catch limits, and status quo was started going around the room before we got into the charter conversation.
So when I got here, I was hearing a few days before I got here, I was hearing that the US side was asking for maybe 5% down and see what the Alaska, the different regulatory areas 2A would think about it. And I don't think anyone really embraced that idea, but they were also saying, we're concerned about the resource. We're down. If you look at the margin of error on that graph that we all saw, it did touch for a couple of years, the B20 part. And it was at the far extreme of the margin of error, but still, it made us wonder how much we don't know. The uncertainty in all this is pretty wide and high. So I think since then, it's been a couple of days. Since then, people are wanting to really rely on the science that we have and be able to justify up or down or status quo based on the survey and the stock assessment, two big things we can really rely on. So that's, I think, where people are, which I think the US side feels that the status quo for last year is an educated position to have. But I have heard other members of the US delegation say that the Canadian side is still higher than what the survey says. It's the TCEY that the commissioners agree to is usually around 18% or so, 18 or 19%. And I haven't looked at this carefully, but, and the survey is more around 13 or 14%. But having said that, that's not something that we can decide, but I shouldn't even say we, but the US does not get to decide that. It's something that the Canadians decide. So, I don't know that we're in any different place than we have been in the past with this. But I'm only the second or third person to say, so I'm interested to hear everyone else's thoughts.
You want me to go?
Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, there's a bit of a fracture in the Canadian side, and it seems to be a little bit more maybe this out of school between the processors and the fishermen side, between the two boards. Like, I think the processors are all pretty on status quo. I think the fishermen are all on 5% for the most part, and I think the argument for status quo, what I believe is, if you look at the productivity projections and stuff, maybe they're flat or even possibly trending up a little bit. So if you think the quota should go down, or the TCEY should go down 5%, then that means you think it should have been lower this year. We took an 18% cut to get to this year. So because there isn't really anything to say anything much different about next year than this year, except one thing that does support the going down is that we're seeing the 2012s fall off and we're seeing the 2016 and 17s come on. And so more of the catch this year is going to be fish on the borderline. Maybe only 15% of the 16s and 17s are mature. And we're going to be catching and discarding fish that are not even in maturity yet. I mean, we don't want to be impacting those fish. So the productivity and the size numbers seem to be fairly flat, but the profile of maturity in that fish is actually lower than it was a year ago. So that would be an argument to go down. But the whole feel-good thing about, yeah, we all care, and so maybe we should go down. You're talking about 1.5 million pounds coastwide, right? And we also got economic hardships and problems with this. I just can't get behind a reduction. They were last year more than this year, but they were saying that even if we didn't fish, productivity is going down and we're not having much impact on the thing. So you take the whole 39 million pounds ish and you take 1.5 million pounds out of that, that is a negligible effect turning into an even more negligible effect. And we all get the feel good of putting it down, but effectively there's some economic hardship attached to it. It's a little bit, I can't get behind anyway. So I don't know if anybody else, that's enough from me.
Carl. Ooh.
I think an argument
Carl.
or one argument for status quo would be, I think, only one area caught its commercial catch. You know, so there was a lot of fish left in the water in other areas.
Susan and then Heather.
Thank you. I'll say for 2A that they would like to remain stable, and is the position that they're, how the fishery is directed by the tribes and the different openings, that they are able to protect the resource and what is being caught. And same with the bycatch with the salmon and the sablefish. So 2A would like to maintain at the 1.65, and if even at the small cut isn't going to make that much difference, and they never fully catch the amount of fish that they're allotted because of the responsible nature of how the tribes manage their fisheries.
Thank you, Susan. Heather?
Another consideration is the results of the surveys, the going down slightly in some places and the going up slightly in the Bering Sea. So that's a consideration as well.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, but to the argument of the Bering Sea, they left so much fish in the water, they didn't even come close to their catch. So, you know, could leave it the same and hopefully they'll get their fish.
Yeah, there were a number of reasons for that, as you probably know. So yeah, it's complicated out there and it's expensive and there's hardly any processors and it's a mess basically. So the fish are there and areas are slightly up in terms of the survey. So that's a good sign.
Well, one takeaway that I heard is, you know, when I was dreading coming into the conversation from a stock biomass standpoint, when we started the discussions and hearing from staff on the presentations, and then hearing that, because last year we heard that there virtually was no incoming year classes. And now this year we're hearing that they are seeing some incoming year classes, 16 and 17. So for whatever it's worth, it feels like that's a bit of a positive note. I think the challenge in all of this for all of us, for staff, for PAB members, for the conference board, is we're coming in here year to year trying to manage a fishery that takes 10 years to develop. And when we're in a really low stock situation like we are, and we're all feeling the pain of it, we're antsy we want to do the right thing, but we also have these economic challenges. So so it just makes it all that much harder. I think what I hear around the room, maybe with the exception of a couple of individuals, is that everybody has the resource at heart and wants to do the right thing. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody in this room would consider themselves a steward of the resource. And, I would say, like, listen to the science, but you could parse it both ways, right? And so, we were sitting here last year, and now this year we're maybe have a glean of, more positive news. So when you say we're going to think about it tonight, I'm going to be, I'll still have the same issues when I wake up in the morning of, like, we want to do the best for the resource. We want to do the best for our harvesters, our boats. And, I think everybody in this room takes that, very serious. If that's the status quo, that's the status quo. I could live with that. Reductions, we've had that, and, but, I'm listening to, one of the scientists today say, we hope, like, that's nothing I can hang my head on at the end of the day, so we're kind of in a rock and a hard spot. That's just my opinion.
Well, I guess my motivation for not putting it to a vote tonight is I think that on both sides of the aisle here, we want to go back and hear what's coming out of the conference board and where they're at. Get that input, because those are our people, and we want to know that we're not bucking the tide there. So go ahead, Peggy.
Well, just to add to what Heather said, I think I heard one of her folks say that St. Paul did catch most of their quota, 87% or something like that, because they went out, they did the trips, they did the work, and so they caught most of their quota, but it isn't reflected in the total for CDE total.
It's like every direction you turn, you hear something different. We got a lot of guys that came back with their tail between their legs from 3A saying it's the worst fishing thing I've ever seen. And that was this year, right? And 2 years in a row. So, but yeah, it's challenging. I think that we just have to be conservative and give it some time.
One other thing I'd add to what Mark Carroll said in the conference board, that last year we took big hits, and the year before the U.S. took big hits anyway. So to wait and see what those hits, the results of those hits, rather than taking a cut, has a little bit of merit. Sorry, the cut that the 2B took last year hasn't had time to sift through. And when we talk about recruitment, that 16 and 17 babies are still small. And Ian says that he wants to see 3 years of it before he feels like he can breathe again, and this is only the second year we've seen those fish. So it's hope, but tiny glimmer. So anyway, did you want to talk about whether we don't come to an agreement with Canada, what happens versus if we decide that we want to just have a status quo? Because both are status quos, But if we decide on a status quo and agree to that, then the catch sharing plans within the regulatory areas can be amended, or no, can't be amended, sorry. Either way, we're stuck.
Well, we're not taking a vote on, I'm not suggesting that we take a vote. We're not making a proposal
Not
tonight.
today,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
We, after tonight's conversations, we might come back with a whole different tack, or it might just be the same. So, yeah, I'm not looking for any action at this point. I'm just trying to get a sense around the room of how people feel. And I think I'm pretty well there. We're all on the same page about being conservative and not messing around with moving quotas around a bunch. Okay. Anybody else have anything on that topic? Going to be prepared to come in tomorrow and ready to make a decision? Okay. Well, we still have 15 minutes.
Want to fight?
Heather, go ahead, man. Heather wants to fight, hopefully.
Always, that's why I come here. I wasn't here last time, so. I have a motion to propose on another topic.
Thank you for
Mr.
reminding me.
Chairman.
Yes.
If you want me to do that, and do you want me to send it to Joseph
Yes.
so that he can put
Please.
it on the screen? Joseph, what is your email?
Send it to PAB support. That would be better.
PAB underscore
Yeah,
support.
PAB underscore support at IPHC.int.
Okay, PAB underscore support. Is it?
Yeah, PAB underscore.
Yeah.
PAB031 underscore.
Okay, say it out loud.
PAB031 underscore.
All caps, PAB?
031 underscore support at IPHC.int.
Mhm. Okay, sent it. Mr. Chairman, while that's being put on the screen, do you want me just to say it out loud and then we can get it on the table?
Please.
So this is a result of the conversations that we had already, and I kind of tried to capture them. The PAB makes the following recommendations to the Commission regarding the FIS with the goals of reducing program costs, identifying additional funding, and improving survey coverage. Number one, determine the optimum survey design to generate the best data and to avoid bias and provide the potential cost of this design. Two, investigate the feasibility of combining survey work with harvesting on commercial vessels as is done in Chatham Strait. Three, investigate different grades and sources of chum salmon that might be appropriate for use as lower cost bait for the surveys, including dark chum with GMC, hatchery cost recovery, etc. And then four, other ideas. There was an idea that Bruce had that I'm not sure I can capture, so I would ask him to try to do that. I'm just not getting it. And with a second, we can have it on the table.
Can I get a second to the
Second.
motion, please? Thanks, Greg.
So just the first one is, we asked Ray what the optimum survey design would be if he had his wish, and it would be nice to know what that is. And we used to see it, and then it got whittled away.
I heard it clearly, Heather.
Huh?
I heard it clearly. It was $4 million.
Yes, that's what I think. We used to see it on the screen, I should say, and people would whittle away at it, the commissioners, I should say, just for financial reasons. And so it'd be nice to know what it should look like to avoid bias in particular. Because frankly, when places don't get the appropriate surveys, the people who fish in those areas and the people who operate processing plants in those areas really are disadvantaged, and that's just the fact of it. And so that's unfortunate, and we need to help with that. It'd be nice to know how much that would cost, so that, as Peggy said, we would know what to find. If we can find money someplace in the US system, like we did before, we need to find more, but you know, it's got to get better. So that's the first one. Combining the survey work with harvesting on commercial vessels came up, and that's what's done in Chatham Strait. And so we want them to look at that. And then the idea of chum salmon that might be cheaper than what they're asking for now could be looked at as well. And that's the third one. The fourth one, like I said, Bruce has an idea, but I don't thoroughly understand it enough to capture it, and I apologize for that. But if he wants to amend the motion, that'd be great. And there may be other ideas as well.
I think she's putting you on the spot, Bruce.
Well, I don't think any of us have access to the data to analyze it properly, but we conceptually, we can compare, let's say 3C, 4A, for example, whatever those stations are, how many stations that is, the possibility of having one boat with a freezer go out there. The IPHC costs are the flat rate of the charter and their secretariat, and not sure what else. And they also take 90% of the fish income, 50% of the bycatch, right? So let's say that those charters, I can't remember how many charters there is altogether, charter areas, maybe, let's just guess 30. 25 of them are probably underwater and are costly, right? And we keep hammering away at 2B and 2C for principally revenue. I mean, they're sampled to death, you know, compared to other areas that the catch is low. I don't know what the CPUE is out west. It's very poor, but if a boat could just go out there and it wasn't running in and running out and delivering fresh every 2, it could freeze on board and take 100% of the catch, and maybe IPHC could contribute 50,000 or 100,000, I have no idea what, towards it. The cost of that would be less than the cost of the present system, and you could cover more areas that aren't getting sampled very well right now. We'd have to look at CPUEs, we'd have to look at fuel costs and boat costs and fish costs. So their charters are losing money even when they're taking 90% of the fish revenue too. So that probably works against this being a viable alternative, because you're taking some revenue out of it, but you're not taking any, you're not putting any costs in. So maybe working with them and putting a cost analysis on it be kind of interesting. You know, you're doing 5-day fresh trips. Those guys that were fishing far out in 4A, what did they do last year? They didn't do it this year. They were fishing 12, 13 days, and they were running 2-3 days in and 2-3 days out and delivering 14-day-old fish that there was actually no fish value and it was a loss. But so, you know, there's some huge inefficiency out there that could be looked at from a different perspective. And then I guess the last point is that at the end of the day, if the boat had enough capacity, and the CPU is fairly low out there anyways, could run that fish right down to Vancouver or somewhere and deliver it all frozen down there and get a way higher revenue for it. So anyways, something that could be looked at maybe together with their thing. How do we quantify that in a statement, Heather? God knows.
Okay, can I ask you one question? It's probably a dumb question, but you said sell it in Vancouver or Seattle or wherever.
Yeah.
Frozen, and then get a price for that. And then the boat keeps that.
Yeah.
100%.
All of it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You know, the boat takes the risk of whale predation and pays the fuel costs. I mean, it's iffy at best, but it'd be worth looking at, I guess.
And there would have to be somebody from the survey team on board.
Yeah, You got that cost, and you got to find a boat that has no job in the middle of June, July, and August, in the middle of the summer, and it's big enough and has a freezer in it. You know, I mean, this is a big ask, right? So that means it has to make lots of money. So that makes the cost even worse, right? So unlikely, but
Cost analysis.
worth
of
looking
that.
at.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll work on that, but maybe, Mr. Chairman, we could table this. And then we could work on that final thought and bring it back in the morning real quick. And take a look at it and take a look at the language. And if there's any other ideas, we could put them in there. I said earlier that I'd like to talk to the guys at CBSFA who do survey work to find out if they have any other thoughts. You know, maybe others would too. So
So we need a motion to table the discussion.
I don't know if I can motion. I don't know if I can move to table my
Somebody
own.
else can though.
Oh, okay.
I'll make the motion to table the discussion. Table the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Kayla, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the design of the FIS is to be revenue neutral, right? So all of the, sorry, I'd make you could just drag that over to.
So this year, past year and a half, our second priority has been modified for cost effectiveness while still maintaining scientific integrity of the survey. So we no longer have revenue neutrality as an objective because we recognize that objective is hard to maintain. But yeah, just to clarify.
I'm just trying to get after where the majority of those funds from that survey for that fish end up, right? And like to think that it ends up paying for the program.
It's not even close.
Yeah, well, in a perfect world, the money that 90% that we retain covers the costs that are associated with running the survey.
Yeah.
As we've seen, particularly, I mean, most of the time I've been here, I would say since 2022 at least, survey expenses and whatnot have in some years significantly exceeded what we're making in revenue. But yes, in a perfect world, what we're receiving in that 90% of revenue. I also would like to just clarify that particularly in Alaska, we do not retain 50% of all bycatch. Any bycatch that is caught in Alaska state waters is returned to the state of Alaska. While FIS vessels still maintain their 50% of that revenue.
I didn't know that.
Okay, so
Mark and then Peggy.
Mr. Chairman, just a real quick question. It came up earlier, and then when Ray was here, we didn't ask the question about why that you guys think that the dock price is going to be going down, you know, in the surveys. I'm just curious where that logic is because I can't see it actually. But.
Yes, thank you. I actually did realize that didn't come up with when Dr. Webster was here either. So I will do my best to try to give some sort of answer. I know that we initially forecasted, we thought this past year was astronomical. And we were like, oh, there's no way this is going to be maintained. We initially went into our projections with a 15% decrease in price. And we were told, you're being way too conservative. They're gonna be better. They're gonna stay. And we were told to reduce it to 10%. I recognize, particularly based on conversations that we've had today and over the past few weeks with others, that still may be conservative. However, that's where we were instructed to stick to. So, and unfortunately, Dr. Webster isn't here to provide a better context, but that's all I can really get at right now.
No, that's a great context, but you know, what's happened is that the price keeps going up. It's accepted, dock and market price. And I don't know what the rest of you think, but I can't see that really going down drastically again, because there always has to be a bottom level. It's always volatile, but you can't go below a certain point. And we've reached historic highs on the dock in Alaska and other places. So that's what I just wanted to bring up.
Peggy, you were next.
Nope, I pass.
Pass.
But I think to your point is that my point was that there's not competition when they arrive at the dock. So you're going to get the fish instead of $9 or $8, you can get it for $5 or $4, right?
Yeah, but the whole point too with these, when this started, when Steve Hogan and I was involved in that years ago, the whole point was that you tell the processors that what this is for. It's a survey to perpetuate the species, perpetuate the fishery, and the processors can pay a little bit more. We're not talking about all that much more fish. So the price was always higher at the auction than on the regular dock. And I understand what you're saying if there's only one individual buying in a port, but we can't do anything about that because the surveys have to come and do that. But in, you know, places like Homer, Seward, whatever, where there's other buyers, that price should be higher. And I don't see it going down, but that's just my impression.
Bill?
But like, I've bought fish before. Sometimes it's hard to pay the full price, like when the shoulders are missing and stuff like that. You know, like a lot of times they chop the fish up and, you know, you get like, you know, just chunks missing out of the flesh. So it makes it kind of difficult, you know, to pay the full deal.
Is that like for the sampling process?
Hmm.
But the idea has to come back that revenue needs to do the surveys and know what's out there. Instead of a 40 or 50%, we need to get higher than that on what the surveys are there. And people, you know, we were talking about revenues. There were people that were talking about, why don't the processors throw money in? Or why don't the fishermen throw money in? That's great. That would be wonderful. But having this and establishing a dock price for these, I think would be a better idea, a better way of going. A small portion of what we need for this.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, probably most of you do, at the end of last year's meeting, we were talking about this and what we could do to increase that revenue stream. And Keith Singleton from Alaska Leader threw out the idea that we approach vendors, the fuel companies, the gear vendors, places like that. I think that kind of fell on its face. I'll claim as much guilt in that as anybody, that I just didn't really pursue it, but I did think it was a good idea and I just got sidetracked and didn't put a lot of effort into it. But it seems like that could be an opportunity if somebody was to put their shoulders to the wheel and really put some effort into it on both sides of the fence, that maybe, you know, doesn't hurt to ask. I think of the fuel docks. I mean, they make gigantic revenue, right? And we're a good customer. It's worth pursuing.
And also things like Alaska Airlines, you know, shipping the stuff, the other going down. I mean, it can be done. We used to do that for when Hannah used to have parties. We would go to them. It wasn't that much money, but I mean, you could at least approach them and approach different aspects of you know, the industry.
Chevron could part with $1 million and not even notice it was missing. I mean,
drill, baby, drill. So, yeah, there we go.
Peggy.
I think the key to that, to Keith's idea is social media, because no one's out there trailing that survey boat, watching what they do, and then, you know, posting it on their social media. So IPHC has great social media, in my opinion, and it's always very interesting, very high quality. So however that happens, if that could happen with the surveys, then they would see Chevron, you know, is sponsoring this, or Hallie Hansen is sponsoring the gear, or, you know, however they're going to do it. But that's the trade-off. That's why you could get the big bucks from them to support it.
There's probably a couple of companies within 2 miles of where we're sitting that could buy the whole thing and write off and want a loss to write off anyways, right? Probably the more we lose, the greener and better and happier they are. Just up the street.
There's a building outside with a big M on it. Perfect example. Does Bill like halibut?
Yeah. The PR for what we're losing, the PR is worth it for him, and he can write it all
I mean, I'm giggling, but I think that there's some potential there. I mean, if it was sold the right way. Sure.
Call them up.
A
Heather's
friendly
prob-
amendment?
It's probably on your Rolodex anyways, Heather.
It could be, yeah, I think so. Peggy?
So this is all sort of centered around this survey program. I was wondering if we wanted to talk more about ways to streamline the annual meeting? Put that in a separate motion, maybe?
It's 5 minutes after 5.
Oh. Too late.
I like to table things.
I'm fine with it, but I think that probably if we took it to a vote, I think
Yeah,
the
let's
majority is
vote.
like ready to be done. Yes. Okay. For the US delegation, we are hoping to set up a meeting 6:30, 7 o'clock with the commissioners. And haven't heard back from, we have an email into him. Joseph's been trying to get in touch, haven't heard back, but please keep tabs. And if you're circulating, then I'll try and text you and let you know when we get that set up. No, not our meeting, no.
Ours is at 5.
Yeah, it's that fun.
You guys are just
We're better.
better. Way more organized. Okay, we'll call this meeting into recess and start up again tomorrow morning. Thank you.